Hey all, Dave Waters. It's a rainy day. It's August 23rd, 2026. We do need the rain. Hearing the rain on the roof is kind of soothing. It's really nice. But anyway, I titled this We Drifted Apart. Um, Life is a way of taking us in many different directions. We grow up, we raise a family, we work, we struggle, we move away, and we lose people we love. We get busy trying to make a living, and sometimes we simply forget to live. And before we know it, years have passed. This week I find myself thinking about growing up in the 70s. Last week I talked about the youth group and, the things that we did together. But my sister made a comment on that, my message. And she brought up many different memories that had slipped my mind. And some of those memories my sister Julie and I shared from those days are, we had church picnics. Literally, we had monthly roast beef dinners. And I remember, I don't know, I had to be 10, 11, 12, 13. But it was something we did every Sunday. And I mean, once a month. I apologize. Anyway, those roast beef dinners were very special. That's where families gathered together, and the tables were full of laughter and fun and sharing. Those were good days. Uh, th- there was a mother-daughter banquet. There was a father and son picnics. There was a junior and a senior youth group. There even was a couples club. The couple, they did things, I don't know, once a month or whatever. They went out to dinner, they hosted parties. They just, it was just, everybody was together. It was, I don't know, it was a different time. There was the Christmas Bazaar, filled with people, laughter, food, homemade stuff. And, it was, I don't know, they don't do that anymore. Just, familiar faces, everybody gathering together. I remember Easter sunrise service. We'd get up before dawn, and, we'd go to this, whatever destination. It would usually be a hillside somewhere beautiful. And we'd watch the sunrise, and it was so much bigger than ourselves. And, Dad would come out and his arms would be wide open and go, "He has risen." And that would start that Easter morning, and we'd have our, little service right there, wherever that designated one. And then we all went back to the church, and we all pitched in and set up tables and cooked bacon and sausage and pancakes and eggs and you name it. It was just a big, huge breakfast, and it was a beautiful, beautiful day. And then from after the breakfast, we go upstairs and have our big traditional Easter Sunday and service. And then after that, everybody would go their own way, but everybody had families. We had families, and we would have lived in like Wappingers Falls, and my aunt and uncle were in White Plains, and I don't know, the cousins and everybody. We'd all meet somewhere, one of the houses, our house, their house, whatever, and have a huge Easter rest of the day. So what a big day! But anyway, those were some good memories. I also remember we did trips to Shelter Island as in the youth group, which I mentioned last week. And every single one was an adventure. We didn't realize at the time, but those weren't just activities. They were actually building us. They taught us how to work together, how to serve, how to laugh together, how to disagree and still sit at the same table. You know, so different now. How to look after the young kids and respect the older folks. How to belong somewhere. Where there were adults that actually knew your name. We've lost that. There were people who noticed if you weren't there. There were grandparents, parents, teenagers, and children all sharing the same space. Somehow, somewhere along that journey, much of that changed. Life took a different direction. Families became, scattered. Churches became smaller. Many are gone. It's horrible. Communities became busier, but yet our families fell apart. Technology connected us to connected us to the entire world, but strangely enough, somehow it separated us from people right beside us. I wonder if our young people are missing something that we took for granted. Yep, I do. Yep. Not because today's kids are doing anything wrong. Think about it. They simply cannot experience something we don't no longer give them. Maybe, what they need isn't another. They don't need another program, another pill, another shot of some kind. They just need us. A picnic, a breakfast, a campfire, young group, a fishing trip, church supper, a place where someone knows your name, a place where generations spend time together, a place where an older person tells a story and a young person actually gets a chance to hear it. Last week's message was about the youth group. Reminded me of something very important. We cannot spend all our time worrying about what happens to the next generation if we're not willing to spend time with them. Maybe Rebellion isn't about inventing something new. Maybe it's part of the revolution. Maybe part of the revolution is remembering something old. Community, family, neighbors, faith, service, and belonging. Maybe we have drifted apart long enough. We won't recreate, there's no reason to recreate the 70, nor should we even try. But we can carry forward what's good about them. We can open doors. We can open doors again. We can set another place at the table. We can invite the kids. We can invite the grandparents. Stop being so separated. We can bring back those breakfasts, the picnics, the projects, the laughter, the stories, and simply the joy of people spending time together. That is important. And maybe something beautiful happens when we do. A child finds a mentor, a lonely person finds a friend, and older generations find purpose instead of fading away. Younger generations discover wisdom. Families, they reconnect. Neighbors become neighbors again. And little by little, a community begins to feel like a community. That is the world I still believe is possible. Not because we all, think alike, not because we worship alike, not because we vote alike, live alike, or care from the same place, but because of all those different, all our differences, we actually belong to one another. And that is what love, faith, unity, and truth, that's what it all means to me. And that's what I talk about every week. Love, love enough to care about someone besides yourself. Faith enough to believe things are going to get better. Unity enough to sit at the same table despite our differences. And truth enough to admit that somewhere along the way, many of us have drifted apart. We don't want that. Maybe it's time to find our way back. Not backwards, we want to find our way back to one another. There are churches, there are children growing up right now who someday will have stories about, they'll be able to tell stories about their childhood. And right now, some of those, children nowadays are growing up, they're sheltered, they're in their own world, they're stuck on their phones, and they're missing everything. And it's up to us to share those, make those memories, bring us all together. And it's not me, it's you, it's everybody. I want them to, remember, maybe we still have time to give them those memories. We still can do those breakfasts. We can still do those picnics. Last Saturday was amazing. We did the youth group. We had a great breakfast. Next year, they're going to be putting on the breakfast, and I'll help them. I'll show them how to do it. And that's what it's all about. More picnics. Go on a retreat. Teach the kids how to do it, a church dinner or whatever, or fundraisers, so they can set a goal together, make the funds, and do something they want to do, whatever it may be. Just go to a movie together, but they raise the money together to do it, or bowling, or whatever it may be. We do this big thing in Shelter Island every year. Maybe there's a place where you live or near where you live where they can gather and, have a, together and, do things together. Play games, do projects, laugh. But anyway, a church hall, after our church on Sundays, we have a special group. We go to the Lutheran Church in Little Falls, New York. The pastor, Joe, is amazing. We have a growing group. The church is almost packed every single week. And I'd say everybody, half of us, at least half or maybe more, go up after church and we're there for another whole hour or more, enjoying your fellowship, coffee, cookies, whatever it may be, but we're all connected and laughing and, just sharing our stories and solving each other's issues, and, just, it's magical. So a church hall filled with laughter, and an old person, that listened, a community that really cared, and there's an unmistakable feeling wherever, no, there's an unmistakable feeling wherever life eventually took them. The feeling of belonging. We've all traveled many roads. Maybe the next road is the road that brings us all together. Let's bring the kids in. Let's teach the kids. Let's enjoy the kids. And that's enough. I'll say amen. Love, faith, unity, and truth. Revel in Victory is my book. It's going strong, but I just somehow someday I'll get a real publisher, because I have the second part of that book, and I have other books two other books finished and ready to publish. But I'm not chasing it. I've barked up so many trees, and I get so many people calling me and bugging me and wanting my money and, promises. The publisher I had, I'm not mentioning it, but I should. They really wronged me and treated me bad. Just miscommunication. I follow up, they don't. I follow up again, they don't. And I don't know. They had an opportunity to create a great relationship and help them. So they'll get theirs. What comes around goes around, and I believe that. And everything happens for a reason. I'm glad you're here. Thank you guys. I really love you. Have a great week. This is David Waters. Take care.